Hey guys, my name's Caitlin, welcome back to my channel. So today I'm going to be going through all of the books that I read in the month of August, or that I attempted in the month of August. There are a few DNFs in here. Overall, we have 26 books were attempted in August. That's kind of a scary amount, but we've been in lockdown for for pretty much the whole month. I think the whole month of August we were in lockdown. So didn't really have much else to do. Alright, so for each of these books, I'll go through the title, the author, whether it's part of a series. I'll give you a brief synopsis because I do not want this video to be incredibly long. And then I'll also give you what my rating was out of 5 stars. Just a little bit of a preview. My rating, if it's a 5-star read, it's absolutely amazing. I'll probably reread it in the future. I might want to buy a copy of it. It is the peak of all amazingness. A 4-star read for me is something that is still really good. It just lacked that oomph that kind of gave it a 5-star read. 3 stars is kind of like, it's average. A 2-star for me is just kind of like, what the hell was that? Like if I'm reading it and I'm like, what the bloody hell am I reading? And why am I still reading it? That's probably a 2-star. A 1-star for me is just, it was shit. It was irredeemable. There wasn't a lot to like about it. Not a big fan. 1 star. Book number 1 is Let Me Remind You by Gianni Holmes. This is book 3 in the Love Permit series, and we follow Clay and Jeremy. Now, I did not read the previous books in the series. I only read the 3rd one, and it was fine. I found that I understood everything that was going on without needing to read the other 2, but you could go back if you wanted to. Clay and Jeremy have been in a secret relationship for multiple years, but Jeremy finally reaches breaking point and just breaks things off and pretty much tells Clay to forget about him, and he doesn't want to see him ever again. 2 years later, Clay's football career is put on hold because he loses his memory in a car accident, and he ends up moving back home to see if something can trigger his memory when he gets slapped by a man he doesn't know randomly in the middle of the street. I think you can guess who that is. I gave this book a 3 stars. I thought it was interesting. I wanted to see where it went, but there were a lot of things that happened that I felt had absolutely no relevance to the blurb whatsoever. It was just like a roller coaster of like, it turned into a friggin' action story, and I was like, what is going on? This is too full for me. Book 2 that I read this month is Not for Sale by Crystal Lacey, and this is a standalone. Now, Jace had organized a date on an app and he ends up meeting Theo, but it's not until after they've shared a bit of a passionate night together and Theo has already left that Jace realizes Theo accidentally mistook him for his prepaid escort. It turns out that Jace is actually a teacher of Theo's nephew, so they do run in the same circles, but being together could cause a lot of problems for the both of them. I gave this book a 4 stars out of 5. It was really nice, very steamy, which you probably, like, when you start reading this book, do not expect it from our main character, but it was spicy. Book 3 is Operation Meet Cute by K.M. Newhold, and this is also a standalone. Harlow is absolutely obsessed with creating the perfect meet cute to find his forever man, but he has absolutely no idea that his best friend has been in love with him for about the past 4 years. I gave this book a 3 out of 5 stars. I just didn't really like Harlow's character very much, and not liking a main character kind of makes it a little bit difficult to sink fully into the story, but I know a lot of people loved it, so could just be me. Book 4 is Dear Mr. Brodie by A.M. Johnson, and this is book 3 in the For Him series. So Donovan has just gotten out of a marriage and decides to explore his bisexuality, so he creates a profile on Grindr, and when he rocks up for his date, he realizes that the man he's fallen for online is actually one of his students, Parker. I gave this book 5 stars. I absolutely loved it. I have loved every single book in this series so far, and there's going to be at least one more, I believe. So I'm very keen for that. I absolutely loved reading about Donovan and Parker. This has become one of my favorite books this year, actually. Number 5 I'm going to need my laptop for because this is a series and I do not remember all of the names in order. So I actually mentioned the next book that's coming out in this series in my video last week. So this is the Morelli family series. There are currently 5 books in the actual series, and then I think there may be 1 or 2 kind of separate stories in the same world. So number 1 is Married to the Mobster, number 2 Beloved by the Boss, number 3 Enticed by the Enemy, number 4 Seduced by a Sinner, and number 5 Kissed by a Killer, and these are all by Leighton Green. I don't think I mentioned that. So Finch and Luca had a hot night a few years ago, but they had to part ways, and now Luca, who is a member of one of the New York mob families, is tasked with killing a young man to send a message to this man's father. without realizing that that young man is actually Finch. And so he comes up with this proposal for an arranged marriage to try and keep Finch alive. I gave all of these books 4 stars overall. Binge-worthy series. Do be warned though, book number 6 doesn't come out until the 31st of December. Book number 6 is The Law of Seduction by Sylvia Quinn. This is book 1 in a series. I actually DNF'd this book. So this was meant to be one of those almost hook up with someone and then find out that you're actually work colleagues type thing, but it was just really weird. And I found that I couldn't connect with the characters at all. I felt like the characters themselves, like, were changing a lot. Like, you kind of got an idea of them and then 2 chapters later there was just some completely random aspect of them that kind of came out of nowhere, and I just thought it was a little bit strange, and so I DNF'd it. Next was Wildlife by Jem Frost. So this is book 1 in the Wild and Wilder series. So Bran and Orr had been best friends pretty much since they were in diapers, but Orr moved away to go to college, they lost touch, and they haven't actually spoken in 3 years. Now Orr is moving back to their hometown for senior year of college. The 2 of them end up being roommates, and they start to realize that there's a little bit more than just friendship between them. I gave this book 3 stars. I found it started out really interesting and I really enjoyed where it was going, and then it just kind of went downhill from there. Wasn't really my thing. I wanted to DNF it, but by the time I realized that, I was already majority of the way through, so I just kept reading. Next is The Reek by Lily Mayne. This is book 3 in the Monstrous series. 20 years ago, monsters appeared through a gap between their universe and ours, and most humans have now been evacuated to cities along the coastline. However, there are some humans who do not want to be in kind of military-controlled environments, and so they brave the wastes, as most of the world is now called, and are known as raiders. Our main character, Ghost, is a raider who often ventures out into the wastes to try and find supplies for his camp, and on one of his journeys he comes across a monster who is bound in chains, terrified and severely injured. So he takes him back to the camp where everyone is terrified of him and starts to see a bit of a gentler side though to him. I gave this book 5 stars. I've given each of these books either 4 or 5, and I think this is my second favorite in the series. So I absolutely loved it, but it did not pass book 1 for me. Just in case I didn't make that clear, this is a monster human type romance, so if that's not your vibe, maybe just give it a pass. Nice. I'm ordering sushi. Next is another duology. So this is the Suntastic Fun series by Ariella Zoel. So book 1 is It Might Be Hot, and book 2 is Hotter Than Hot. Both of these books are novellas that feature friends to lovers, bi awakening, and guaranteed happily ever afters. So book 1 follows Lachlan and Alessandro, and then book 2 follows their best friends Baxley and Callahan. I gave both of these books 4 stars. They're not very long, they're both less than 100 pages, and Ariella Zoel is my go-to if I want low angst, really fun, really cute romances. So would recommend if you're looking for something very short and sweet. Number 10 is another trilogy. So this is the Real Thing series by Emma Lyons. So you have Not So Fake, Not So Innocent, and then Not So Nice. My ratings for these books severely differ. So book 1 follows Lane, who needs a date to his ex-boyfriend's wedding, and so he hires Zach. But part of Zach's job is that this is a company that does not have happy endings. Like, they cannot hook up with their clients. If they do, they can get fired. But it's instant attraction and instant chemistry between Lane and Zach, and they are getting more and more close to breaking those rules. I gave book 1 4 stars. I really enjoyed it. I needed something light and fluffy, and this was it for me. It gave me that. Book 2, I gave it 3 stars. It was alright. It was like a bodyguard type thing. It was average. Book 3, I actually DNF'd, and I don't even think I made it 10% of the way through. It was meant to be like an asshole boss and his witty PA type thing. I normally love those types of books, but this one just didn't do it for me. Number 11 is another series. I need the laptop again for the names. So this is the Princess Assassin series by Ariana Nash. So you have book 1 is King of the Dark, book 2 Reign of Darkness, book 3 Curse of the Dark Prince, and then there's a 3.5 novella called The Cottage. Editing Caitlin butting in just for a second here. With this next synopsis, I didn't actually specify who the humans were at war with. I said they've been at war with the past 8 years and then just continued. So humans have been at war with elves
for the past 8 years. So there's just that little missing bit of the synopsis that I happened to leave out.
So humans have been at war with the past 8 years, or at least they were until the king surrendered their land to them. Now Nico was a soldier on the front lines, and he has been approached by one of the 3 princes to try and figure out who wants him dead. Now when Nico refuses, he is forced into slavery by the prince, and he can't escape because if he tries, the one bright light in the palace, Julian, will suffer for his actions. I gave each of these books 3 stars. They were really addicting. I needed to know what happened, and so I just binge read the whole thing, but it was a little bit too angsty for me. There was a lot of trauma, a lot of violence, a bit of betrayal, and the whole time I was just sitting there thinking, I don't want to keep reading this, but I need to know what happens. So I don't think it's something that I would reread, but it was definitely enjoyable in the moment. Number 12 is Delayed Game by Balin Crow. So this is book 4 in the Sugarland Saint series. So Memphis has recognized Tristan Hale since the second he saw him on campus, but he decided to ignore him because of their history. Whereas Tristan just thinks that Memphis is an asshole who decided to ignore him for absolutely no reason. Memphis wants to correct the way that Tristan views him, but in order to do that, he's going to have to get close to him, which is something that he said he wasn't going to do. Now, I gave this book 3 stars. I didn't love it, didn't hate it. It was just kind of nah. Number 13 is Enemies with Benefits by Annika Martin. This is kind of a free novella for book 1 that has the same name. It's pretty much, I think it's just the prologue, like you get to read the prologue for free before delving into book 1. Will was a soldier in Afghanistan, and his whole unit was killed after they were betrayed by a billionaire. So now that he's back in the States, he wants revenge, but he has to get through this billionaire's bodyguard who no one has ever seen. They only know him by the trail of bodies he has left behind. And when he makes a move on this billionaire at the party, the bodyguard and him take a little bit of a steamy, unexpected twist. And it sounded very spicy. I gave this book a 2.5 stars, which is actually the lowest that I rated overall this month, I think. Just because while it was spicy, which was what I wanted, it did feature kind of androgyny and cross-dressing. It is not really my cup of tea to read about in a romance. 14 is Fenrir by Kay Sterling, which is a standalone. So after his dad passes away, Stellan decides to head to Norway to try and find the ancient wolf Fenrir and finish his dad's book. What he didn't expect was to be left as a sacrifice for the ancient monster, and he has to try and figure out if he can tempt the wolf to spare his life. I gave this book a 3 out of 5 stars. It was a bit short and not a lot of development, but it was still pretty good for what we were given. I do have to preface though that Fenrir is not a shifter. I saw a lot of reviews of people being like, this is straight up bestiality. You're not wrong. He is a solid wolf. He is not a shifter. He is an ancient beast. Just keep that in mind. 15 is Fake the Date by Anna Bird, and this is book 1 in a series, but I also DNF'd this one. So Ben needs a fake date to his sister's vacation wedding because his mum keeps trying to set him up with women even though she knows that he's gay. So his straight boyfriend offers to pretend to be his partner for this week away and enjoys it a little bit too much. Now, the reason that I DNF'd this is just because it felt really young and unrealistic. I didn't really like the roommate's character either because I didn't even make it 20% into this book and he was pretty much just full of, why do I like this? I'm not gay, and oh, I'm going to make a Reddit post on how to be gay. And it was just really weird, and I know from reading a lot of reviews that people felt the same way about the roommate. So yeah, I just DNF'd that one. And the last book that I read in the month of August is Friendly Fire by Saxon James, and that is book 4 in the Never Just Friends series. So Cam and Raph have been best friends ever since they were little kids, but they started drifting away when Cam moved to a different high school, and then Cam himself started pulling away because he had friends for Raph, and Raph was straight with a girlfriend. Now, fast forward 8 or so years, they're 24, they're next door neighbours, Raph wants out of a loveless marriage, and Cam just wants his best friend back even if he has to hide the fact that he's in love with him. I gave this book a 3 out of 5 stars. I'm generally not a big fan of the second chance romance type, so that could be influencing my rating. But also I just felt like I didn't really connect with the main characters too much, which made it a bit hard to sink into it. But one of the bonuses that I really loved about this book is how the main character delved into asexual and kind of aromantic partners as well. I find I don't read a lot of books that feature that, and so it was very nice to see really good to read. So those are all of the books that I read in the month of August. I cannot believe it is already September. Like, what the heck? This is going way too quickly. As far as I know, Victoria, which is where I am, is going to be in lockdown for another few weeks. So my September wrap up is probably going to be just as big as this one. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know if you have read any of these books or if you're going to read any of these books. Please don't let my opinions get in the way of you deciding to pick up these books. I'm just one person. You may not feel the way that I feel about a certain book, whether I loved it or I disliked it. So let me know if you are going to read any of these books or if you have already, and what are your opinions on them. Feel free to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe down below if you'd like to see similar content. I will see you guys next week, hopefully, if I can keep to an uploading schedule, because I really can't do that. I'll see you then.